Welcome to another episode of You Can't Make This Shit Up. Your host, David Washington, Joel Hoxley. This is a JN Washington Network production. I want to thank everybody that's on our crew. David will, I only say Aaron because, I don't get these last names, I mean,
it helps with my memory. So
well, you do a great job because, I still can't say John's last name properly, so I don't say it. But, thank you for being here. And, David, let me just jump in.
Okay.
So states such as Florida are often described as low tax, due to its lack of personal income tax. 10 states, Florida, Washington, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, Nevada, South Dakota, Texas, Illinois, Arkansas, and Louisiana. They are particularly regressive with upside-down tax systems that ask the most of those with the least. These states tax their poorest residents, those in the bottom 20% of the income scale, at rates averaging 3 times higher than those charged to the wealthy. Middle income families in these states pay an average rate more than twice as high a share of their income than the wealthiest families. Now, Florida, which has the most regressive state tax system in the nation, fares worse by these two measures, with low-income family pay almost 5 times more than the wealthy, and middle-income families paying more than 3 times. David, let's get into this.
Oh, yeah. So this is a study from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. And this is a think tank out of D.C., and they have been doing this for some time now. And although Florida politicians like to state that Florida is a low-tax state, if you're poor, it's not. But if you're rich, it's the place to be. And so this study just lays out the numbers, the data, and that it's difficult. It's very difficult for the poor, for the bottom 20% that pays an average of 13.2% of their income in state and local taxes. And that's a lot when you compare it to wealthier families who earn more than $730,000 a year, the top 1%, they pay an effective state tax rate of just 2.7%.
So whoever did this study has never been to Connecticut. So listen, I mean, Connecticut has taxes on top of taxes. I mean, you can't go through Connecticut without taking about 10 steps through the taxation, unless you like gas. Gas is taxed at the highest rate that I've ever seen. I go from New York, which you'd think was expensive, into Rhode Island, and all of a sudden you see if gas is $5 in New York, it's $8 it's $8 when you get to
but how much
Connecticut.
of that is state
And if
and
you're
local taxes?
if you're talking about if you're talking about those taxes that are passed on to consumers, because this is the only taxation that we have in Florida. I mean, I don't see anybody making $19,500 a year trying to build a business. I don't see the taxes that are on those. The insurance, the tax on the insurance is, there's no separate tax. It's the same tax across everything. But those taxes that are tagged on to alcohol, cigarettes, they're called the sin taxes, which I think are clearly an attack on the problem. Listen, we try to price them out of doing it, and we force them into crime because of these taxes. Sin taxes are probably the worst thing. Just come up with a system that says, smoking's not good for you. You just, unless you ban it outright, look how prohibition ended up. I mean, come on. Now we just we tax them very high. They won't be able to afford it, or they'll be upset that it's that much more expensive. Duty free. Go buy something duty free, and you're going to see a huge difference.
The Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, in their report, Who Pays, state that Florida owns the most regressive state tax code in the country. And so when you have the lower 20% paying 20% of their income to taxes versus the top 1% paying what was it? 2%, 2.7%, so 3%. That does lay out a problem for Florida. And with our housing crisis that we have here, it's even more unaffordable for the lower class and the middle class to afford to live here in Florida. And what is the state legislature doing to address, affordability to live here, whether it's taxation? They've, in the last session, thanks to DeSantis and some legislation that he moved through, businesses got a nice tax cut. Billions of dollars in tax cuts.
Look, I'm not going. Listen, no, I'm not going there. Listen,
billions
no.
of dollars in tax cuts for corporations.
No, we're not going there.
Tax
Listen,
increase, $1 billion tax increase. And
you
we
just
talked about this
let's
in the last
just
show.
you just want the income tax, right?
Increase on.
No, David,
citizens.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
No,
yes,
David.
it is
David,
fact.
listen.
It is fact.
This is a tourist state. The whole purpose of our tax code is to put higher taxes on things that tourists use, okay? And it's the hotel taxes and all that other stuff. And poor people aren't supposed to be using those, but of course, with the housing the way it is, they're actually having to rent rooms instead of renting homes.
The poor can't go to Disneyland?
So, David, I'm saying it's the tourist tax is the target. What you're talking about is the fallout. So we're going to say the state's not fully responsible for this problem anyways, because you have look, in Orange County alone, they tried to force increase in the penny sales tax. That is exactly what this is all about, sales tax. This whole conversation is about sales tax.
But Orange County's tax rate is lower than Seminole County and Osceola County.
Correct, because they know, the citizens know that it's not the right thing to do because you wanted to put into transportation and you have other problems that you need to solve.
Infrastructure, that money was going to go towards infrastructure improvements.
Okay, so David, right now, in our next election in Seminole County, thank you, Seminole County, we will make the decision whether our taxes stay the same or we eliminate the tax. Now, the majority of people in the county are not going to vote against keeping the sales tax at the way it is. It's just not going to happen. Once it's there, it's there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's harder to force one in. We saw that in Osceola County, and we saw that in Orange County. But we'll see what happens because of the economic problems that we're having as a nation, as a state, where the people of Seminole County go. So let's keep an eye on that. I know it's going to be all the way down in November, but it's sales tax. And you have 67 counties. All have the right to a certain amount they can raise the sales tax. And most of them max it out because their governments are trying to sustain themselves off of the back of people.
And aren't there also state laws regulating how much could be taxed?
Yeah, they can only go up to a certain percentage. So I think it's like 2%.
There's no personal tax, personal income tax here in Florida. Sales taxes on products. The state tax is on products, but not services. So you're excluding a pool of potential revenue where the poor spend more money on products versus the wealthy spend more money on services. So their effective tax rate is lower. And then of course you have no sales tax. I'm sorry, no personal income tax. So you know
I think
that
it's
limits the revenue.
I think
that
it's
the state
amazing,
can have.
David, that we're having a conversation on this type of. This has been a difference between an income tax. This is a hey, let's just have an income tax and get rid of this. We don't ever get rid of anything. The problem in the state of Florida that should be addressed is what is taxed, and that's what we should be talking about here. Listen, food is not taxed, but you know what products are taxed. Let's see. Clothing. State of Massachusetts doesn't do clothing. Clothing is essential to living. So anything that's essential to living is not got that tax on it. That's what this is saying. We have taxes on too many products. That's all this whole study is. We have taxes on more products that other states say, look, I don't think we should, diapers. You really think there should be a tax on diapers? Do you think there should be, we have legislators up there trying to make sure that we have,
Okay, so shift those burdens, tax burdens, onto the people who can afford it. Again, Ron DeSantis, not this current legislative session, but the previous legislative session, orchestrated one of the largest tax shifts in state history when he signed legislation that lifted more than $1 billion a year in taxes from businesses onto consumers. So we may not have a tax on diapers or feminine products or whatever, which sounds good and makes for great sound bites. However, consumers don't know, residents don't understand that while that may look good for a media soundbite, they're being taxed an additional $1 billion a year because Ron DeSantis, failed presidential candidate, decided to shift the burden of $1 billion onto consumers and off of
that's not how that
businesses.
works. That's not how that works.
Yes, it
Listen,
is.
tax breaks employ more people, and when more people are employed in better jobs, that's what our issue is. We need better jobs. We need to get into just not having not having tourism as our number one, source of income. Look, income tax sucks. It's a terrible thing because you think that you're being burdened right now. Think about the fact that your pay, the hard work that you do every day, the government wants to put their hand in that pocket and then take and put their hand in your pocket again. Mm-hmm. Listen, this is a soundbite because sales tax has always been this way, and having a state that is only sales tax based is going to burden the consumer. So stop consuming. That's all. Just consume less, and you'll be able to survive. No, David, this is exactly the sales tax pitch. Look, sales tax is horrible any way, shape, or form. So don't talk about big business. Don't attack big business on the fact that
I'm about to right now. If
you look at the taxes that a business pays, okay,
let's talk about it.
They pay for your employment. Your employment comes with a lot of stipulations. So first of all, I have to make sure that I have to pay into workers' compensation. So I have to pay into workers' compensation, and that is an insurance policy on you, the worker. So I'm now paying that. I have to pay for health insurance for anybody who works over 32 hours. Thank you, Obama, for
that's not a state tax. This is all federal stuff. We're focusing on the state taxes. For instance,
we're talking about the burden on business. We're talking about the taxation on business.
Okay.
Listen, and when it comes
But
to
that
when it comes
is
to
not
this,
state taxes. That is corporate
okay,
responsibility.
so
If
you
you
want
if you want to provide benefits to your employees and attract good employees, offer health insurance, offer
why
workers'
not
compensation.
offset the fact that you have to pay so much to the federal government? Here's the thing:
We're talking about state government, Joel.
you take the federal burden you take some of the federal burden off of the business to get them to bring people on. David, look, you just want to take out of my pocket and give to somebody else, that's fine. I mean, that happens every day.
Let's talk about the burden on businesses. Florida right now Florida could pass a policy known as combined reporting to close a corporate tax loophole here in Florida that multinationals like MasterCard and Target are using to sidestep millions in state taxes here in Florida every year. Most other states have already adopted combined reporting for corporate taxes, but not Florida. Not Florida, where companies like Target are sidestepping their tax responsibilities. Fortunately, there is legislation that is working its way through the Republican supermajority legislature here in Florida, called the Working Floridians Tax Rebate, a tax break that would save an average of $2,400 for more than 2 million lower income households across the state. You can't beat that. And
Remember, these are
that is just closing a corporate tax loophole. Thank you, Jason Garcia, for that piece of reporting. But if corporate entities, multinationals, are knowingly sidestepping their tax responsibility, and there's an opportunity to provide relief to working families, shouldn't Florida
how do you
take
think
that opportunity to pass the Working
So
Floridians tax rebate?
So you're saying because a business finds a loophole in the law, they take advantage of it. Do you think that the people that do their taxes don't try to find every advantage to get every dollar back from the government? How many people do? How many people?
Isn't it good governance to then close that loophole so that millions of families of regular
there's
hardworking
legislation. You just said there's legislation coming through to check it out.
Right. So close the loophole. It's responsible, good governance. Give relief to millions of households across the state in this corporate.
How is that?
Tax loophole.
So how is that? Now let me ask the question.
It's not going to go anywhere.
Let me ask the question. How is it going to offset? How is it going to offset? It's not going to change anything in what you're paying. That if they pay their tax, they pay their state tax, right? You're saying it's going to put a relief on people. How is it going to relieve anything? What burden is going to change? You think they're going to lower the state tax because they fixed a loophole? Listen, that's all a beautiful soundbite. Listen, Target, don't take advantage. Okay, state legislature, let's make sure we buckle up and make sure everybody pays every dime they possibly can. That we can make sure that we have to have a balanced budget. So I don't see how this line right there doesn't explain how it's going to offset any burden on the people. Listen, let's deal with the roofs. Let's make sure that our companies pay their taxes. But also, let's make sure that we can find ways to take the burden off of the people, which is making sure that necessities aren't taxed and that those luxuries are taxed. David, my final word is, look, business is bad, but employment is great. So the government can employ us all. Thank you very much.
Let me close this out this way. Do your own damn research. Senate Bill 1570, Florida Senate Bill 1570, in House Bill 1601, 1601, House Bill 1601, is the legislation, the working families legislation that you should look up and do your own research. Thank you, State Senator Victor Torres, for sponsoring Senate Bill 1570. This is something that is very much needed. And please, again, Florida, the Republican supermajority, please take a hard look at this legislation where it will benefit 2 million lower income households, the working Floridians tax rebate. Again, we are your political innovators. We hope that you enjoyed today's show. Joel Hawksley, David Washington. You want to learn more about what we do, what we're talking about, visit our website, look at our viewpoints on our blog, our newsletter, The Informer. The link to The Informer is right here in the description of the show. Please comment. We'd love to hear what you have to say about this particular topic or any topic. Let us know what you want to talk about because we'll love to hear what you have to say. Bring your facts, not your feelings. I'm David Washington. That's Joel Hawksley. This is the J and W. Or should I say J and Washington Network? The J and Washington Network. We're out of here. We could look at the legislation.